Okay, welcome everybody to the Christmas edition of the Infrastructure and Services Committee, 6th of December. Firstly, I'm going to do apologies. I have one from Councillor Dermody. Are there any others? None? Can I please have someone move that? Thank you, Nigel. Seconded, Councillor Soper. I'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. First item is the minutes of the Infrastructure Committee meeting held on the 8th of November, that they be received. Moved Ms Cook, seconded Ms Coote. I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you for that. It's carried.
The police where it's monitored.
We're working through that. We'll own the hardware.
It's not the liability, it's once you get the information, what you do with it. The police said that's where the restrictions need to be on who can access, and once you've got it, not who owns necessarily the hardware, that it gets to the whatever the monitoring agency is.
Okay, Tom.
The issue of privacy, honest concern is the wrong word, but I just think it's something that we do need to think carefully about, and therefore when I look at the stakeholder group, I just wonder who it is that's thinking about that issue, and it might be that it's two councillors that are on it that should be doing so, but I think somebody has to be particularly thinking about that rather than only thinking about the security aspect of it. I think one of the things about CCTV, it seems to me, not only how where do you put it, but also how far do you go, because you could end up with CCTV in every street corner and every like they do in London. So anyway, I just wanted to ask that question about who is representing the that privacy issue in the stakeholder committee. Should there be somebody specifically for that, or is it enough that the councillors, the councillors Skelton, Soper that are on that committee will look after that issue?
Yes, Trudy.
Through you, Mr Chair. So, Councillor Campbell, that the privacy component and for a CCTV policy is overseen by Council's privacy officer, Andrew Cameron. So that's something we deal with operationally. The stakeholder committees is about the engagement to say where would we place the cameras in the central business district area. So it all stemmed from the equipment needing to be upgraded, so where the policy side sits operationally with us as staff. So we have that oversight and obligation.
Right, Evelyn and then Peter.
Yes, Mr Chair. I thought that most of the people on this committee actually have use or experience with some form of CCTV in their business and things already, so they would be well aware. It's not solely incumbent on the councillors, but I'm reassured to hear that our internal legal team are also part of that, because that makes us think. I just have a question about, I know we're looking at the inner city at the moment, but part of the request was wider than that. As part of forward planning, do we need to think about the issues that were raised by that wider request?
Look, if you're talking about the placement of cameras.
Also the type of information that was being sought, which rather than being people focused was more vehicle focused.
Well, you have with so I can speak to this, Trudy, is that with the camera technology today, you have artificial intelligence in the cameras, and to what extent you use that intelligence for is really up to us. But the simplest one is NPR, which is number plate recognition, and that is invaluable for police, for crime, for everything. It just makes sense. It's a no-brainer. If you want to find a number plate where a car is, who was doing it, that's fine. So that, I guess, every time you use a piece of that artificial intelligence, then you are getting into privacy, and you would need to be upfront on what parts you are using. So, for example, hypothetically, if you were going to use face recognition to track someone, then that would create a different thing. So, at the moment, that is still all in the work being done by Scott Bain, and that'll come to council of what a system can do. It's really how we use it, I think. We'll answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's quite clarifying, because I probably, and I might not be the only one, was thinking more about the face recognition technology or the people recognition technology rather than the number plate recognition. So thank you for clarifying that it possibly will do both.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Peter.
Yeah, thank you. How far do the cameras cover? Not the distance, the actual cameras, but which area of the CBD do they go out?
No, that is still to come. That is still to come, and Mr. Bain, who Trudy talked about, is working on that exact thing. A lot of it will be determined by the access to either fibre and power. Power is the critical one. In a lot of cities around New Zealand, there is permanent power to lighting poles, not in Invercargill. That's right, isn't it, Russell? Yeah. So things like traffic lights will have to be the source of power potentially for 24/7 power. So all this has to be worked out yet, and then once that is, you then apply that to the budget. So you get the first bit's CBD, and then you can potentially spread out to Windsor, South City, the North Road entrance, the East entrance at the cemetery. You can look at all different parts after that. But our first port of call is, what we talked about with making this a safe CBD.
Thank you. The second part of the question is, of the $250,000, is that paid solely by the commercial ratepayers, or is it on the general rates? Does everyone pay for it?
This is a budget that comes out of general rates.
Thank you.
Yep. Further questions? Nigel.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just to clarify, having had a couple of conversations with Mr. Bain, I think that report will be quite conclusive in the sense of the way forward, pre-December treaty is my understanding. But regarding policy, which we were talking about, just certainly happy to help if there's any, because obviously we've got a very large network at the stadium, but if any assistance needed, there's some policy there that we could grab and we'll have a look at going forward. But I understand that report will be pretty conclusive on.
So that's coming to us in March. Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, did you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I did. Just one last issue was the capacity to add to the network. So, and who makes the decision on some of those things. So I've had recently some feedback from the Camper Van Association that's got the park down by Stead Street Wharf, and we've had that building tagged a couple of 3 times recently that we've had to do. Is a one-off location like that potentially added at some later stage if we wanted to? At the moment, we've got people parking there.
Look, I don't want to delve into detail.
No, but I'm just saying, can we?
Yeah, it can be. So you would probably start off with a server system that would take a minimum of 250, 500 cameras.
Yep.
But the key thing that Scott needs to work out for us is the network that you connect into. That's the tough bit.
Yep.
That's the real tricky bit, and could consume a fair part of the budget rather than the cameras. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? We've got some recommendations here that we receive the report, and note that the next progress report will be in March next year. And also we recommend to Council that Councillors Soper and Skilt remain on the stakeholder group. If that's happy with both those?
I'll move.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just checking with Councillor Skilt.
Yes,
Soper.
thank you.
That's okay. Right, that's moved by Evelyn, seconded by Trish. I'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
That's carried. Thanks, Trudy. Right, now for this was really interesting reading. Welcome, Russell. Transport procurement strategy that we're sending to, and I see you referred to me. Does the chair have to authorise this one?
No, Mr. Chair, this report's about the National Land Transport Strategy,
right.
so it's the following one
It's the following
under the activity report.
Yep. Okay.
So this is one of my key strategies for transport, and I guess in the past it used to be called the roading procurement strategy, but because it includes both our roads and our public transport options, it's been now terminised as transport. This strategy looks to sit alongside and complement council strategy, but it is something that we need to do specifically for a requirement for Waka Kotahi to actually continue to gain their subsidy. So from my perspective, it's a pretty important strategy, and it's been something we've been working on. Certainly this strategy has changed a little bit, and it has certainly got some other elements added to Better Outcomes, which is a government initiative that you may have read in through there, which is something that the government requires of their departments, but a recommendation to councils. But once again, their funding becomes, I guess, linked to that. You might also have noted in the strategy that, or the draft strategy, that it is refers to a number of our future contracts, which includes our road maintenance contract, which is coming up for renewal, and that talks about, I guess, an approach of a shared risk, which is more of an alliance style contract. Happy to answer any questions on the strategy. Right,
Tom.
I mean, I read every word and digested some. So maybe the obvious question is there anything that's different in this from what has traditionally occurred? I know I understand it's a new strategy, so there's nothing to compare it with, but yeah, is there anything that's different?
I guess the elements that have been added to it are around where we head with Better Outcomes, and I guess that is the government initiative. And we are proposing to continue to use the shared risk model, which is what I talked about in terms of the our maintenance contract is probably our biggest 5+1+1, so it's a 7-year contract, and it encompasses most of the roading work. So I guess that is more of an alliance style, which is currently what we're operating under. So, but it is of a relatively similar nature to our historical strategies, and it is relatively consistent with many other councils.
Thank you.
Russell, a question around, this is the amount of money allocated for unsealed road maintenance. Is that enough? 300,000?
The numbers that are included in the strategy are the amount that we have been allocated and applied for through our budgeting process through the National Land Transport. We have two elements to our unsealed road maintenance, which is our maintenance, our routine maintenance, which is our grading, but we also have other money allocated, which is our remetalling, where we go out there and we add new, I guess what we would call a running course on top of it around our network as and where it's needed. So the more you want to do, the more it costs. So I guess we try to find that balance, and our numbers are similar to what we've been traditionally using.
Right. Even though there may be more wear and tear on those roads because of sort of semi-rural sort of development along these roads, with more, obviously more traffic movements, potentially might be a new dairy farm there or something with milk tankers.
The challenges we face with all of our unsealed roads, along with our roads, is to actually try to find that sweet spot in the maintenance and renewal phase. And it's the type of material that you will apply. And we are trialling, I guess, a number of different types of metals on some of our roads and how we do them, the frequency of grading, just to try to find that optimum place that keeps our customers as happy as we can.
Okay. Thanks for that. Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does it include, I know we've spoken before with unsealed roads and residents complaining, especially in the peak summer seasons, about dust. Does that include the oiling and maintenance in that manner?
A very good question. Unfortunately, some 3 to 4 years ago, Environment Southland required anybody who was applying a product on the roads to have a consent, and they had a transition period. So at the moment, to my knowledge, there's no products that are approved for dust suppressant. In the past, it's fair to say that versions of oil were used, but they're now no longer approved. So there are other products that are out there, which are, some are wood based, but some of them have to be applied quite frequently, and their tenure or the period they work is quite low. They're costs that we currently ask the people who benefit from the residents to actually fund themselves. So we would have an approved contractor who can go out there and apply an approved product so long as they've got a resource consent. So currently I'm unaware of anybody who has a product that is widely in use.
Following on from that question, these rural, semi-rural houses collect rainwater for their drinking water off their roofs, and obviously dust on the roof is not good. So is there a certain distance, and probably Trudy may be able to answer this, that a house can be built close to a gravel road, you know, with the dust? Is there any such thing?
Respectful, I'm going to offer that to Trudy, but that's a planning issue. Yeah. And Dodge.
Kia ora through you, Mr. Chair. Not for a particular gravel road. There will be for against a road, but it doesn't specify for gravel, is my understanding. But I may be wrong. I'll need to double check with the planning team.
Okay, no, I was just curious about that, because obviously that concern of Alex is you know, the dust getting on at the house and everything. Yeah. Any further questions regarding Tom?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant to ask you the first time I got a chance. The table 1, number 723, streetlights, where the NES contract, according to this, has ran out on the 30th of June this year. So what's taking its place? I cannot find anything in it.
It's a very good question. We currently operate that under our road maintenance. We've just absorbed that it's a reasonably small contract, and when we tender post-Christmas, we'll be also having the streetlights maintenance in that contract. We have to remember that we changed all of our streetlights to LEDs 3 years ago, and as such, the type of work they do is response work at the moment. It's typically we only are going to our streetlights when someone unfortunately hits them. So in the past, you used to have to race around and change the lamps every 12,000 hours, which is every 3 to 4 years. So now that's reduced significantly. So it's a relatively small amount of work. So we've just
but
managed
it's still
to,
getting done.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not a question. It's just a comment that I'm really pleased to see again that we've got value includes considerations not solely focused on price. For instance, what benefit the procurement could bring to the local community or environment. Mm-hmm. I'm just really pleased to see that we've again got that in the policy, because I think it's a really good signal about our procurement. And just the other comment, Russell, and I suppose like Tom, it proves I've read it. In the executive summary, could you change the spelling of the word principle, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions? No?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, at the moment this is with Waka Kotahi. They are reading it as well, and they have their marker pen out and have highlighted a couple of versions before it's got to the to this report, and it could easily have some other minor tweaks on the way past. They have the Land Transport Act they have to make it comply with, so they're quite thorough in their assessment of it. So I will be bringing back a version that they will have endorsed for council's consideration.
Right, well that brings us on to the recommendations, which are receiving the report and also sending this to council if Waka Kotahi do endorse it. You move
Mr. Chair.
Move both those recommendations. Seconded, Councillor Skelt. Put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye. Aye.
Against, that is carried. Thank you. Takes us now to the road stopping, and I believe is Heather here, but we're not going to discuss this topic. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, we would like that report to be withdrawn. We have identified we have an error, and I guess the process that we believe is best. We start again. and we'll be bringing a report through to February.
Okay, I can actually just put that on hold, can I? Yep, that's fine. Okay, that takes us next to the activities report, and it's reasonably diverse. Speed reviews, Ready Beach entrance, Steers Street roadworks, transport network, bus fares, WasteNet joint agreement, and stormwater. Russell, most of those are yours.
So, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I guess there's quite a range of topics in there, and happy to receive questions on it. But probably there's a couple that are well worth having a conversation on. You'll have seen that there's quite a bit on speed, and although that we've been quite forward in our thinking of changing some of our speed limits, I guess it's worth noting that there was unfortunately a recent crash on our network, and we believe that the reduction in speed due to what has occurred from 100 k's to 80 k's has probably reduced the severity of that crash quite significantly. It was I guess what I would describe as a T-bone crash, and it could have been much more serious. But I think that just highlights the faster we go, the worse the mess if something goes wrong. And I guess that's probably, although it's sad for it to occur, it probably means that we haven't. We've actually been quite successful. So that's speed. Certainly the second one I'd just like to point out is the Community Connect outline. And I guess it's really worth remembering that as of the 1st of February, our current fares on our passenger transport have been reduced by a subsidy from the government, and that comes off on the 1st of February. But from then, people who have a community services card who have registered, come in or gone online when the forms are up, or come into council will get an endorsement on their B card, which will give them once again a 50% fare reduction. So that's something something's coming off and something's coming on, but that's from the 1st of February. So it's actually quite an important, piece of community information that's out there. So,
okay, well, take questions on those topics so far. Evelyn?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Pearson. I was a little confused about this. Does that mean that this will be all day rather than just the 9 to 3? And that's why people who have a gold card should choose which option they load onto the card? Because I couldn't quite see, if it's only 9 till 3, I couldn't see what the relevance of saying you have to choose one or the other.
Thank you. It's a really excellent question to highlight it. So if you hold a Super Gold card, you get free travel between the hours of 9 and 3. So you travel for $0. If you have a community services card, you can travel at any time of the day, but you only get a 50% reduction. So if you happen to have a Super Gold and a community card, you either have to effectively have two cards and choose which one you want to use, or you choose one of the two. So clearly, if you're travelling between the hours of 9 and 3, you will always use your Super Gold concession loaded. But the key thing is you can only load one concession on one card. But many people in our community have access to the community services cards. So for them, they will obviously need to register that card as a concession against their B card and therefore use it for that 50 to get access to that 50% reduction. So I agree, it is a little bit confusing, and at the moment across the country, the comms message is just really waiting to get out there and actually bring this message forward.
I don't often use my my Super Gold and B card outside of those hours, but my recollection is that that's 50%.
Super Gold cards free travel.
But outside of the 9 till 3?
Outside of 9 to 3, it's full price.
It's full price.
Which is $2 a trip, which is probably one of the best fares in New Zealand.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. I appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, then Leslie, sorry.
Just on the issue of transport, I noticed in here you've got some criteria around schools on state highways. So two issues with that. When you say 60/30 variable speed. What does a variable speed mean to a layperson?
Very good question. Thanks for the question. What it says is that the speed is, that's the 60 is the resident speed, and then the normal speed, and during the times where the variable speed is activated, which will be that 8:15 or 8:20 till 9 o'clock when the kids are coming in and out of school, then that speed is reduced to 30 k's, which will be the standard. And it is on the busy roads, it'll be the flashing with the red reflector, red LED sign that's there. But on some of the side roads, you'll have seen them in the yellow signs that say between the hours of 8:30 to 9 or whatever the hours are, that the speed is 30 kilometres an hour. So that's
just a secondary question to that one. So what happens on schools? I'm just thinking of Otatara when they have big event days. Will we have the ability to flash the signs for a longer period?
I would need to check, but I would believe we should be able to actually identify a different period because the legislation allows us to specify the times.
Yep. And just a last question, Russell. Are the ones that you're recommending in here, which are based on the state highways, are they now compatible with what you've got internally with ICC for the other schools?
So there's two things going on here. The state highway stuff is stuff that sites that we can't, we're not funding or putting in place, but we wish to actually submit and encourage the Waka Kotahi to actually get on and do those schools, because it would be a disappointment for us to have done all of our schools and they haven't done the state highways, which are some of our busier roads. So we need to encourage them to do that, but but also our schools are the ones we've picked out of the highest.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that there are other schools other than the ones you've listed there. You've listed 6 there. So the other schools already at that limit, that 50/30 or 60/30 or whatever it is.
No, Mr. Chair, we're actually just about to start this over the next.
Okay.
I think we're obliged to do 60% of the schools by June 2024, but we have Waka Kotahi funding for us to do that in advance. So we have some signs. We'll put those up straight after. And if you recall, when we started through the bylaw changes last year on speed, which has now been changed to the National Speed Limit Register, it requires us to specify a date when we go live. So, because this is actually effectively a speed limit change. So hence, you'll see these as we roll the next bunch of schools out, we'll say from this date, that's the speed. So we just need to make sure that our colleagues, the police, are able to enforce speeds should they need it.
What I was trying to get to though is Waka Kotahi are driving these 6 schools because they're on national highways, state highways. Will ours, when we roll ours out, be the same sort of speed limits, or will there be some variation?
The first 3 are state highways, and then the other 3 are our schools, and we can certainly bring back a list of, I think, the 24 schools we've got to do. So.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, next is Leslie.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Russell, just going back to the Community Connect concession, because of the potential for confusion, did you indicate we are waiting for some nationwide advertising, or have we already got a communication strategy locally ready to go on it?
It's another great question. The answer to that is yes, we have both. There is a national strategy coming out, and we have some comms that we are preparing ourselves so we can, I guess, localise that messaging, because the time period post-Christmas for people to get that concession loaded onto their card is reasonably short. It also will put some potential stresses on our organisation for people to have to come in, but also people will be able to go online. There's currently some work being done to have an online registration. So yes, we will need lots of comms, but we'll also need to have people come and visit us to get that loaded onto their B card, which they will need to have.
So we're launching our local comms within the next week, 10 days, are we?
We're trying to align with the national approach, because it's got a bit of extra radio time and paper time. So,
thanks.
Okay, we've got Trish, then Pania.
I think you might have answered mine. Through you, Chair, sorry. The transport through schools and town, what is the current speed?
Mr. Chair, I think it's 50 kilometres an hour in the urban areas.
I thought it was a lot slower for workforce schools.
currently we have been using the flashing school zone. So they're the ones where they've got the 4 amber lights and they blink at certain times. That was started as a trial across the country, and you had 2 choices. You either had a 40k in some places, or you had the signs that we put up, which are the flashing ambers. So we, for whatever reason, started down that path, and this is I guess a national directive that actually is saying you go to a variable speed, and the speeds that have been set are 30 kilometres past urban schools, and I think 60 up to 60 k's. It's interesting that some of the rural schools, they've been also requiring them to go to 30 as well. So
Yeah, thank you. I was aware it was 40. I just wasn't sure.
Through you, Chair, it's 20 if there's a bus park there.
Yes. Thank you very much.
it's 20. It's 20 in both directions.
Yes.
Pania.
I was just really curious, just around with the concessions needing to be loaded, by the 31st of January, 2023. For how long are we going to have that program in place? I mean,
Once again, a great question. It's that the concession is as long as the government allows that, and my understanding is there is no end date to that concession, which means people could continue to come in. I guess it's that first few days, week, when they think they can get there and their card doesn't actually give them the 50%, and they need to come in to or go online. I guess that's nationally it's a bit of a problem. Our problem won't be as great as Auckland, I would imagine, and that's why there is some ability to need to be able to connect to the MSD database where your community service card number is stored and for it to be secure.
Okay.
Nobby.
Just a couple of quick questions in relation to Stead Street roadworks that you've got there. I saw at the end you've got a statement that says we will continue to work closely with our contractors to ensure this level of disruption is avoided. So does that mean that we'll still have one-way traffic as you're resealing, or does that mean that we will have some total closures? I hate it when you pause on it.
I just, Mr. Chair, just trying to make sure I get it 100% right. So the sealing of the road will require a period of time where there will be traffic only one direction.
That's right. Yeah.
There will be traffic be able to get through there in one direction at all times, and that's only for a relatively short time while we seal that piece of road. There are other works, for instance, the work that ES, and my understanding, having seen their traffic management plan, they continue to manage to have as many lanes as they can safely, which is.
So are you suggesting while you're sealing a certain area, the traffic flow will just be one way, or will it alternate with lights?
At this stage, my understanding is it'll be one way, so people will still need to return through Bay Road, and I think that date is planned early after Christmas, so that will have the minimum traffic disruption.
Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you're a new councillor, you get to ask questions that you're certain have been asked. You're certain have been asked 1,000 times before by councillors. When I look at the Already Beach entrance paragraph, and I asked that question last meeting, so I appreciate the fact that there's a description of what happens in here now. But I mean, I do wonder whether a fortnightly inspection is actually sufficient. I mean, in my view, Invercargill has got 2 absolutely premium destinations, outside destinations. One is Queen's Park, the other one is the beach, Already Beach. And yet fairly, I'll say regularly, but not infrequently, you go down there and it's blocked. And I was there, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was a day when the lifeguards were out, they'd flags out, and it was actually completely blocked because people had tried to get in and got stuck, so nobody could get off the beach and nobody could get on the beach. So, I mean, my question really is that frequency enough? Is it what we have always done? But even if it is it actually enough considering the number of people that use Already Beach, me every day, by the way, and my dog, considering the number of people that use it, is it actually a sufficient service? Can we do more?
You didn't say that was a really good question.
I might pause. Mr. Nolan is looks after operations, and I'm not sure he wants to answer. I might answer on his behalf. So we have traditionally regularly inspected it on a fortnightly or more frequently, and certainly the maintenance team goes out there more regularly than that, because they just pop out and have a look. Exactly, because we don't necessarily like people to get stuck either. However, we could increase the level of service. There is a cost associated with that. Happy to do more, but you just need to balance what you're getting, because we can clean the sand out and it be a dry, windy day, and by the following morning it has actually got quite a build up. What we do find is that, and we do know the sealed road only goes probably 2 or 1/3 into the beach, and then you are into sand, and it depends on how dry the sand is and how much it's compacted. So what we do find is that there are some cars that are clearly unsuitable to go on the beach, plan to do so, and if 2 cars approach each other, one has to pull off to the side, and hence they get stuck, and that's where they get jammed. So unless we actually wanted to physically build a road and maintain it all the way to the beach, which I'm sure would need a resource consent and a number of other things, we certainly can continue to do more and try harder, and I accept that, but that does come at an ongoing cost. That's an unsubsidised cost.
Through you, Chair, I think if there was, if that increase in attentiveness were going to cost more, it'd be interesting to see how much that would be. Because anything that we ask is always going to have that reply, isn't it? Anything
Absolutely.
is always going to have that reply. So I'd rather than just accept that and give up on it, I would like to see what the extra cost would be. But it would seem to me that that a weekly inspection would be in order. But I do not like to see people trapped on the beach, and that is certainly happening at the moment.
Certainly happy to pass it on to a team, and I'm pretty confident that the supervisor is going there reasonably regularly as well. Probably our biggest challenge is certainly the time between Christmas and New Year, is how we actually keep a team on. And that's not saying that we can't, because we have people who are on standby to actually respond, but it's just trying to find the level, the appropriate level of balance that we actually are comfortable. And if we need more, then we will deliver more.
So Russell, just with Tom's question, when would be a suitable time for you to bring back to this committee just what an increased level of service would look like, and the costs that may be involved?
I think in reality, if we want to do it, we should try to do it more over the summer period, because by the time I bring it back to a February committee, we've actually just about missed the peak. The horse is bolted, as you would have said. So we can discuss with the maintenance team how we can improve that level of service and try to reduce the problem time. Clearly, if it's raining for a few days, then the problem won't be there. That's quite clear. But it's on those long, hot, dry days, then we just need to keep monitoring it more closely and get some good feedback and actually respond to it rather than say we're not there till next week.
Chair, I'm happy to put my question about a report back on hold until we see how things have gone, given your comments.
Yep. Thank you. No, thanks, Russell. Right. Nobby.
2 things. We've got a meeting on the 20th, or a cluster of meetings on the 20th. If you wanted an overview report back from Russell, he can work that quick, I'm sure.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy just to see if let's get on and just put a bit more push against it a bit harder and see how we deliver it, because we won't be in too much financial trouble, I don't think.
I've given 5 minutes to think about what the answer he gave me about Stead Street, which is still unhinging me a little bit. When we had the diversion last time that went through Bay Road, one of the things that the community threw up, which I thought had some merit, but it was too late in the process to get it done, was why don't you have an AM one way and a PM the other way? So people coming in from Otatara in the morning get access, and then at midday you change it over and you go back out, because probably 80 or 90% of the traffic will be in those 2 periods, going those 2 directions. And some of the other implications I got last time around was people dropping their kids off at the kindergarten early in the morning. By the time they went around Bay Road, physically couldn't get to work on time. They had jobs that prescribed certain times. And certainly I got some feedback from the emergency services as well, because we've got 30 police out there living in Otatara. And so it's quite a big community, as you know, about 4,000 vehicle movements a day. So it's significant. And I just don't understand why we wouldn't consider that alternate. So if you come in the morning, it's 8 till 12 or whatever it is, midnight till midday is coming this way and going back out the other way, and have appropriate signs to say, hey, if you're coming in and it's the wrong time, you go down Curran Road, or you go back through the city out through Bay Road. So just some ideas on that.
So, Mr. Chair, what we've tried to do is for consistency, so that if you do know where you're going, because if you're 5 minutes late or your watch is 5 minutes, I can just imagine you get there and you're saying, well, no, it's still 5:02 and I'm coming through. To be fair, we've had some people who didn't always believe they weren't supposed to be going in that direction anyway. So I would think from a traffic perspective, it would have a degree of concern to actually rotate it. We have thought about during the time whether or not we could run our traffic signals. The sealing will be a relatively short activity, and we are trying to do it straight after the break so that it actually has the minimum of impact, because there's still quite a few people away. Yes, it will have an impact, but it's something of a reasonably short duration. And we can suggest that to our contractors, but I would anticipate that we wouldn't necessarily think that would be probably best traffic management practice. It's better to be consistent in terms of security from my experience.
Yeah, my experience is that we don't get the consistency. I copped quite a few when I'm biking through there, when it was closed off last time, quite a few people coming through that weren't meant to be there, predominantly younger people, and they just come down that way anyway. There's not much you can do about them. When you say it's a short period of resealing, what are we talking about?
I think the suggestion it's 4 days long,
okay,
but could conceivably be less than that, subject to the way things go.
That's fine. Thank you.
And it is only for the daylight hours when they're doing it, so it's not as if it's going to be.
So when Environment Southland finish their project, are they going to cut across your new ceiling? Are they? Is that the idea?
Once again, it's a great question. It's something I really would like to make sure that we've looked at the state of the road, and we don't believe that we can wait effectively another 18 months before it can be sealed. So we intend to seal the road and stop back from where they're going to work. So it is actually quite a deliberate action, and it's something that we've really want to make sure that's really, really, really clear. That says that this is not a mistake. We have to seal it, and then they have to actually deal the piece in the middle. The only reason if it's sealed through the middle is if it's easier for the contractor and it's a very low cost to actually seal through. So it's something that we have thought long and hard about whether we could delay it, and we can't.
So just what happens when the artwork that's going up, the cultural artwork that's going up, will that be completed by then?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we are working closely with them to coordinate all of those things, because they're the three actions that are currently the artwork, the sealing, because the artwork has some other, I guess, traffic related issues that where do you put the cyclist and how do you manage them. So there's a whole lot of things that are going on there that the team are working closely together with to minimise any impact, because we are quite aware of the concerns.
Okay, Alan and then Darren.
Yeah, Russell, Richard. I've lived there for 35 years or more. I've seen the road sealed, I don't know, maybe half a dozen times, and they've never once ever closed the road, or they felt the need to close the road. Do you find now that just because you did it that last time that this is an easier option for you? Because if you put traffic lights there and they were going to hold people up, wouldn't then people voluntarily choose to go the other way if they thought they might be held up? I mean, what's changed so much that you have to do it now and it's never been done before?
Some of the new traffic management from a safety aspect, what the contract is seeking to, we've thought long and hard whether or not we can manage with traffic signals and the length of queues, but we did see, I guess, that an avoidable situation a couple of weeks ago where the traffic did back up, and that's the sort of thing you could get. But I accept that after Christmas that the traffic flows are less. It's something that we and the contractor think that the solution we're proposing is the safest solution. And it's once again, it's a relatively short issue.
Darren.
Thanks, Chair. I was going to ask Russell about the duration, but he has answered it. But it is worth drawing back out the length or lack thereof, because I've watched these resealing crews and they are absolute machines. So yet they've allowed 4 days maximum, and I imagine that would have to be pretty wet. They'll do it in 2 to 3.
Right, no fair comment. Russell, other topics here? We've done the beach, bus fares. That's about it. Nothing.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I think it's worth noting that we've got in there that the D Street stormwater renewal pipe is actually a pipe that goes from Herbert Street through the Waihopai River. On D Street, it will be a reasonably difficult traffic-related issues, and we shouldn't underestimate the disruption that will start to have to be well managed by the contractor. I'll put that in that context. So I guess it's just really alerting councillors to the fact that that's going to start in the near future.
We divert them through
And the other one was that we last week had a issue with one of our Branksome pipelines, and it's being managed from the operational team. We still got a couple of little things, but I guess that's the beauty of looking at the new pipeline, which is actually will reduce the impact of what we've had last week, but it also shows that having a full duplicate line, which is something more recently that council has invested in, has meant that we are able to maintain and continue to have good supplies of water available. Slightly different risk, but it's certainly manageable operationally.
Evelyn, then Nobby.
Mr. Chair, just through you to Mr. Pearson, can I just say that I liked the visual at the end, because it, and just in that, summarised so much of the work that goes and we take for granted, and probably the public does as well, and to see it just as part of our roadmap to renewal, as part of the road works, as part of roads in general. Really, really clever use of graphics and information. So I thank you for that, because after reading everything else, it was quite refreshing.
Thanks very much for the feedback. It's Mr. Nolan and his team that need to take full credit for that. Just have to lean to the side, and yeah, I agree. It's a good way to represent the works that go on as BAU behind the scenes that we don't necessarily see. It's the things that keep the place ticking.
Okay, Nobby.
Just in relation to the WasteNet Joint Waste Management Agreement review, and I know Erin's not here, but first question, I guess, is who's doing the review? Do you know that, Russell?
Mr. Nolan, unfortunately, is sitting here and be more than happy to be able to hopefully be able
Peter
to
will
help
take
me.
advantage of you being here.
Yep.
If you'd like to come up, grab Russell's microphone.
Mr. Chair, in answer, we're just going to market now. We've approached 4 people to come through, but we're re-evaluating how we go to market at the moment.
So through you, Chair, I guess one of my concerns about this is that we've got 2 layers of WasteNet. One is the staff layer, for want of better words, and one is the governance layer. And I'd like to think that before we got to the staff level, that we do the governance one first, because clearly in my discussions recently within the last 2 weeks with SDC, they, while they have the overarching goals that are in this report about being consistent in dealing with waste, they very much on the recyclables contract want us to take the lead, and for them to still be a supplementary contract. So that doesn't quite fit with that framework of all the other contracting work we do. So I'd like to think that if we're reviewing, that the review should be at the governance level first.
Peter, how can you answer? Can you answer that?
Yes, this review does look at the governance structure as well.
Yeah, well, what I'm suggesting is instead of having staff members who sit at the second tier layer of WasteNet, which is where the staff connect, giving us advice on what they think the governance area should be, maybe the governance area itself should give some steer to the more the operational side of WasteNet to say, hey, this is what we want and this is what we don't want.
Well, I guess, Peter, are you able to answer where WasteNet currently sits at this minute in the new triennium? From a governance point of view?
Yeah, so in 28th of April this year, there was a governance meeting, and where the councillors and the executive agreed that we would go forward with a review to look at the status of the WasteNet agreement and how it operates currently as it's moved through, because it's 11 years old now. So it certainly needs to be looked at. I agree with Mayor Clark that it needs to be looked at the governance level, and that's certainly a big component of the review.
Right, because obviously we've got some key things with waste minimisation at the moment. Sure. The current waste minimisation plan in its summary or introduction actually says that we're in limbo. Now, in June this year, we saw $700,000 of rates increase due to us sending more to landfill and the increased emission trading scheme taxes and stuff. Now, obviously, this is reasonably urgent. How soon can we expect something that'll get us up and running to really address a lot of these issues, especially glass diversion, stuff like that?
Sure. So in relation to the review of the WasteNet agreement, we're aiming to go out to market this month and have the review finished by 31st of March next year.
31st of March. Okay.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah.
Certainly in my discussion with SDC, they wanted the governance group set up much earlier than that. And they have spoken to Gore as well, and the new mayor there is really keen to get back into more of a governance group arrangement instead of just having the contracts that we've got at the moment, which is us primary and SDC being a supplementary contract.
Well, I see, actually, I mean, speaking as chair and with your sort of acceptance as mayor, there's no reason why the chair of each, the chair of infrastructure of each TA, along with the mayor, couldn't meet informally to actually discuss ideas, and that way you can hit the ground running. Yeah, I think that's can be done without, and then we can receive the review in March. But I think you did right. We need to meet as soon as possible. So that's good. Any other questions regarding the activities report? Oh.
Just one issue, and it's not really on the report, but I can't find another opportunity to flag it. When we were at the Marae recently in Bluff, we had a brief presentation about the cultural artwork that's going along Stead Street, which is really impressive. And I had some chance to talk to the carver, which was really interesting. And we got talking about the whale's tail that's earmarked for Anzac Parade, which is on the corner as you're going into the airport. And I just flagged with him the idea of, why wouldn't you put that whale's tail out this side of the airport entrance somewhere where you could, one, have a backdrop that when you looked at it you saw the water out down the estuary. That was the first thing. But everybody that's going to and from, not just Otara but out to the beach and other places, would see it, as well as the tourists coming in and out, as opposed to the only people that will see that will be those that are going to the airport. And he was open to that, but I didn't know from there how we got onto that, where that would go, and who'd made the decisions, and whether there was some chance to maybe reconsider that.
Russell, can you speak to that?
Are you going to say that's a really good question?
No. Mr. Chair, my understanding was that the project team for Stead Street had consulted with the local Rinaka about that project, and I would need to follow up and actually check why the placements were there. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
To His Worship. This is part of a whole cultural narrative strategy. We were asked to provide, we were commissioned basically to provide an artwork for that particular location, and that is the design and narrative that was considered to be appropriate for the entranceway to the city, given that our narrative deals very strongly on the imagery of a whale's tail. It is part of the Runakas branding. It has been part of the Southland Mirihiku branding for longer than any of us have been alive, probably the best part of 150 years. So that is the reason, is it because of the particular meaning of Mirihiku, which is the fluke of the whale. Therefore, that is the choice of the design. That is, we were asked to put a work in that particular location. It was designed for that location to tell the story. Moving it to elsewhere would change the narrative. It wasn't an accident, it was quite deliberate.
Mr. Mayor, does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't really. Look, we did the asking of iwi in the first place, so I understand that that was our location, was our choice, and asked them for some input into what would be appropriate there. And I'm not trying to change in any shape and form the design work or anything like that. I was just wondering whether we get the best value location-wise by having it there, which is a very restricted audience, I guess, for want of better words. But that's okay. If it's not to be, it's not to be.
No, that's fine. Okay. Right. No more questions on the activities report. The recommendation is that we receive the activities report and also confirm that the Infrastructure Committee Chair, Russell, you need to enlighten me on this, is can prove the council submission. Is that the previous one?
No, Mr. Chair, what we propose is that we will prepare a draft submission for your consideration to support Wakakatahi's interim speed management plan, which is included in the activity, which includes their 3 schools, which their speed management plan is really about their schools, not necessarily about reducing any other state highway speeds.
Okay, and just following on with the need for spelling corrections, it refers to me as Kahia, which is a black knight in some video game called The Witcher, which I don't think is correct. So yeah, no,
that's really sharp.
Spelling mistake. Kahia instead of chair.
Okay, what do you do, Mark?
So there we go.
Exactly.
No, that's cool. So anyone, can I have someone to move those?
Happy to move all 3, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Leslie. Seconded. Pani, I'm going to put those. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That is carried. Thank you, Russell and Peter. Oh, Peter, do you want to touch on the per capita thing? Is that right? Or yeah, we just asked a question on kilograms per capita for the waste in reference to what?
So for the 21,
yeah.
For the 21-22 year, there was 616 kilograms.
616?
616.
Oh, 616, yeah.
Kilograms per capita. However, with diverting some recycling, that got down to 430 kilograms of waste per capita.
Okay, now's not the time to bring it up, but I will be asking why in June we were hit with rates increases for an increase on the 650. It just doesn't quite make sense, but that is a separate issue not to be discussed here. Thank you for that.
430.
Thanks, Peter. Okay. Right, that is the end of the public part.
I got one quick question,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman. The inner city Christmas lights and decorations, when are they programmed to put up? Because we're only a matter of days out from Christmas, aren't we?
Actually, Alice was speaking to Santa the other day, but I'll get Mr. Pearson to...
Mr. Chair, this year we plan to just continue with the Christmas trees, not put the lights up, because there's a number of the strings that aren't available to us. But I suggest we're going to get the best value by actually considering something in the midwinter and using them through there. So,
right, does that answer your question? Alex?
Just to follow on from that, when will the strings be going back up?
the ones in Tay Street won't be, but the ones in D Street will be available after much of the construction's finished.
So
Yes.
through you, Chair, I actually never really quite understood that answer. Are we saying that Christmas is cancelled this year for?
Yes.
Trees.
Yes, it
We've
is.
got trees.
Got the trees.
We've got the trees, but not the lights.
Because we
And we'll
don't
be
have a full
reusing them in
season.
midwinter. Is that
We have 6 Christmas trees we put around the city that we decorate, and the lights are more difficult to put up at this time of year with the bits and with the stuff that's going on in the city centre. So I'm suggesting once again that it's actually probably get the best value for the lights out during the winter time when they actually are usable.
Right. I'm going to go Ria and then Alex and then Ella.
I'm just seeking clarification. So you just said that the Tay Street strings are not going back up?
That's
Ever?
correct.
What's the reason for that?
That's part of the new development. I guess the poles that support it have been changed and we can't support them there.
That would be only in the first block only of Tay Street, is it? Or
That's correct. There's 2 strings down this end.
yes.
Sorry, Alan was next.
I'm just wondering, Russell, if I drive down D Street, I still see a lot of. We only had about 4 strings on each street, and those strings go right down past H and J Smith's. So I'm just and right down D Street, they go all the way down to sort of pretty much
That's
Bay Street.
That's correct. There's
Why couldn't we have Christmas lights on those strings?
I'm suggesting that we just don't put them up this year, but we put them up in the summer in the winter time. So
I don't like that idea.
Okay, we've got Alex, Nigel, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Might I suggest that we put them up for Matariki rather than just midwinter?
that was what I was anticipating we would use them for.
For the little snowmen and things. I mean, is Matariki about that?
Tom, we've got Nigel next. Sorry.
Beg your pardon.
In the interest of Santa, there's 48 trees at the stadium and there's 4 million lights. So look, if you're missing that piece just at the moment, come down to home and be a part of it. Santa's there, the reindeer are there. There's lots of trees and there's lots of lights. And I'm sure, Russell, going forward, if there is some spare string lights, we can string them up coming into Surrey Park because we're happy to be the home for Christmas just in the interim period. All right, so come on down, be part of something special.
Tom.
So through you, Chair, I mean, it seems to me unacceptable that on the 5th of December, as a consequence of a question asked by a councillor, we hear about this for the first time. I mean, I'm assuming that it was not put to council before the last election, so that decision, which seems to me the sort of thing that councillors are inevitably going to be asked about. Well, the only reason that we now know that is because somebody asked a question ad hoc. And I really think we should have been informed about that. Not informed. We should have been asked about that properly.
Yeah, and I imagine this is part of the Wellbeing Committee. Just...
No.
Nice try.
No, that's okay. Look. I mean, it's an operational thing. I can see the winter thing making a lot of sense. Mr. Mayor, can I have your opinion on this?
Come on, Santa.
Look, I think it's probably too late to be pushing Russell to putting the lights up, but we should do some PR on this. We should take Nigel's suggestion and say, hey, look, while we've got the inner city development going on, it's not so easy to put them up, and leave it at that if that's our decision. But we should get on the front foot with that, not wait till we get a whole lot of trolls asking us why we're not putting lights up and how mean-spirited we are, and say that in the interim, as an interim measure, that we've got a whole lot down the stadium that's free to get in and have a look. It is free, isn't it, Nigel?
Oh, it's each and every day.
No, it does. It is free.
So I can leave that with you, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I can do something if that's the wish of council, but I'm not sure it is a wish of council to not put the lights up. So it'd be helpful to canvass that, I think. Because there's nothing Russell can't do if we give him the right direction.
What direction you mean, mate?
Okay, look, I'm going to take Alex and then I'm going to pause. Okay?
I'll leave you alone.
In addition to that, I believe we're the city centre coordinator will have Christmas in the we do Christmas markets and Christmas in the city and that sort of thing with our new streetscapes and such. Do you know if that's planned?
Yes.
Not sure. That's something.
Not really your purview,
not
but
my world.
Christmas in the park, isn't it?
We can add that to the comms. I don't think Christmas in the park is something that we've ever been responsible for, but we have had inner city Christmas markets, and as part of the inner city activation, now that we do have part of the street open, it would be helpful to know if we are activating that area across Christmas. If we could find that out, that would be awesome.
Okay, right. I'm going to end the discussion on the Christmas lights, so I'm going to leave it for the mayor to talk to Russell, and if something happens, then something happens, but
Go to China.
we're sending a delegation to China. Yeah, we'll do that again. Okay, sorry, Trudy.
Not about lights, but I do have an answer for you on dust and houses.
Oh,
Yay.
Setbacks are not created for this specific issue as such, and there is no setback provision in rural areas. It is down to the building owner to site the building, taking into account the potential for dust nuisance.
Oh, okay. I thought there might have been something under health, but no, thank you for that, Trudy. There we
Surely
go.
they would notice the gravel road when they're buying their house.
Potentially. Okay. Right. Thank you, everybody. That is the end of the public session. Can I have someone move? We're going to PE. From the committee, yes, Evelyn, and seconded Darren. I'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried.